After numerous failed attempts, the latest effort is underway to make medical marijuana legal in the state.
12 News reporter Julia Daughtry talked to the local hemp distributor about what this could mean for that industry and the restrictions this legislation would face. New at 6.
Kansas Natural Remedies is one distributor here in the state of Kansas supporting this proposed legislation. The proposed law would legalize cannabis in the state, but only for certain medical conditions like cancer and PTSD. Kansas Natural Remedy harvests these hemp plants, while hemp and marijuana plants are the same species. Due to low amount of THC in hemp, it does not classify as a cannabis. Sam Jones is Chief Operating Officer at the dispensary. He says many attempts to legalize medical marijuana in the state have failed. This latest proposed legislation is different. It would create a pilot program only a limited number of dispensaries could take part in, and the only patients that can participate must have one of 16 qualifying conditions.
We looked through the medical literature. We eliminated the ones that are not fully supported by the medical community, and we kept the ones that are. So chronic pain's a big one, arthritis, PTSD, cancer, those are the primary ones. Those have the most patients that are suffering.
State Senator Cindy Holscher says though the bill is new, she's concerned it would contradict existing state laws.
I'm concerned that there are pieces in here in this bill that could potentially cause the state to have legislation brought against us. Because again, there are certain regulations in place when it comes to medicinal cannabis that we as a state have to adhere to. And if we don't, then that's potential for legislation or potential for litigation.
Jones says he acknowledges the need for change and will continue to address any concerns.
This year, we took a different approach where rather than trying to convince legislators that this is good, we listened to their concerns and we addressed their concerns in the bill.
If this bill passes, medical cannabis will only be distributed through pharmacies, and the pilot program will only be in effect until July 1st of 2029. Julia Daughtry, 12 News.